Okay, we're now live on YouTube. For the record, today is August 31st, 2022. My name is Gardner. I'm the magistrate judge presiding over the preliminary hearings today. This is position 8 on my calendar, State of Georgia versus Reginald Van Carter. Mr. Carter is charged in warrant number 2022 WA12889 with committing the offense of possession of less than an ounce of marijuana. And Mr. Carter is charged in warrant number 2022 WA12890 with committing the offense of either being in the possession or use of drugs, gun, or alcohol beyond the guard line. Mr. Carter's in court. He's being represented by Attorney Pleasant. The state is being represented by Attorney Brooks. Ms. Brooks, would you swear in your witness and present your case?
Yes, Your Honor. Investigator Williams, if you can just show your face on the camera and raise your right hand. I just saw him a minute ago.
Yeah, I just saw him too. I don't know. Officer Williams, would you please come back to the camera so we can get started with this hearing, please, sir? Okay. And it'll probably be better, Officer Williams, if you can find a place to sit down and be comfortable so the camera isn't moving around. But I don't know your current situation, so just do the best you can. Did you hear that, Ms. Brooks? I didn't understand it.
Investigator Williams, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. All right, go ahead and swear in your witness and present your case, Ms. Brooks.
Sir, if you can please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony and evidence you shall give in this matter now pending before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yes. The only thing, I'm not familiar with this case.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll work through this. Do you recall, are you able to look up any of the information regarding this? This is a report that you completed this month on August 19th of 2022 regarding marijuana less than an ounce and crossing the guard lines or an inmate in possession of marijuana?
Yes, ma'am. I'm familiar now.
Okay. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself to the court, please?
Investigator Williams with the Clayton County Sheriff Office Fugitive Unit.
Okay. And how long have you been employed with the Clayton County Sheriff's Office?
Maybe 6 months.
Okay. And in what capacity, you indicated you work with the fugitive unit. Were you working in your capacity with the fugitive unit when this incident occurred inside the jail?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you're a member of the fugitive unit, but you also, as a member of the sheriff's office, you work within the jail as well?
Yes, ma'am. At the moment, yes.
Okay. And on August 18th of 2022, were you in fact in your capacity as an investigator within the Clayton County Jail?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And are you familiar with the defendant before the court, Mr. Reginald Carter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you have occasion to come in contact with him and effectively take out warrants for him in this case?
Yes.
Okay. Before I ask you specifically about this day, you work over at the Clayton County Jail. To your knowledge, is there signage outside of the Clayton County Jail indicating that you are entering into a facility at that time, that it's the Clayton County Jail for anyone who may be bringing illegal items inside?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and based on your view of that sign, it's clearly marked.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and Mr. Carter is currently being housed at the Clayton County Jail. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and in order to be housed at the Clayton County Jail, at some point, did he have to be booked in and cross through the area where that sign is?
Yes.
Okay, and on August 18th of 2022, did you respond to Housing Unit 8?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what was the reason that you went to that area of the jail, sir?
When I was called, I met with Lieutenant Claiborne, which time he told me they was doing a shakedown in the housing area, which time they located Officer Mccarty had located green leaf material in Mr. Carter's room in his county issue bag.
Okay, so let me pick that apart a little bit. When you are, in fact, a guest or an inmate at the Clayton County Jail, do you are you provided certain items, like what you said, a county issued bag?
Yes.
Okay, and was that bag located with Mr. Carter in his cell?
From the information I've received from Officer Mccarty, yes, it was in his cell with his personal belongings.
Okay, and in the officer's indication they went into that cell, you said something about a shakedown. When you're in, can you tell the court what you mean by that?
Basically a search of the cells, different rooms, different housing. They just searched for contraband, weapons, illegal drugs.
Okay, and is this something, as a matter of course, that's done routinely and unannounced at the Clayton County Jail?
Yes.
Okay, and did officers who confiscated these items indicate to you the smell of marijuana?
Yes.
Okay,
When
and
when
I'm sorry?
well, yes, when they brought it to me, and showed it to me, before they even opened it, I could smell it, and they asked me, what you think this is? I said it's marijuana.
Okay, let's talk about that. So other officers that located it and in that chain of custody brought the item to you. Let's talk about that. You said you immediately smelled. How long have you been in law enforcement?
Almost 15 years.
Okay, so you've been with the sheriff's office here in Clayton County for about 6 months, you testified to. Tell me about your law enforcement experience for the 14 and a half years prior to your time with the sheriff's office.
I was with the Clayton County Police Department almost 13 and a half years. Of those 13 years, I spent maybe 12 years in narcotics. Of those 12 years, I spent another 6 years with the DEA. I was at South Fulton for maybe 10 months. I was in narcotics, 9 months there. I was a certified marijuana examiner from until my certification expired from 2012 to about 2016. Several drug investigations.
Okay, and I'll try to move this along, but it sounds like to me you've spent about over 10 years of your career in either narcotics or some type of drug related capacity in law enforcement.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're a certified tester of marijuana?
Yes, I once was before it expired. Yes, ma'am, I was.
Okay, so is it safe to say in your training and experience you have smelled marijuana before?
Yes.
You've tested marijuana before?
Yes, ma'am.
You know what marijuana looks like?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is this hundreds of times, thousands of times you've come in contact with marijuana as a substance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is it, how many times would you say, just so the court understands? We don't have a test, so it's your training and experience. You believe it to be marijuana.
Maybe 500 to 900 times.
Okay. And in that training and experience of over a decade, over 500 or upwards of 1,000 times or 900 that you have come in contact with marijuana, is it your testimony and based on that training and experience that what you smelled that was in the defendant before the court's bag in his cell was in fact marijuana?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you also indicated that at the time, Mr. Carter was in fact an inmate at the Clayton County Jail, and these items were located in his cell where he was then and is currently still an inmate.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I don't have any other questions right now, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Pleasant?
Thank you, Judge. Investigator Williams, when was Mr. Carter booked into the Clayton County Jail?
Before I made contact with him, I'm not sure the date. I'm not sure the day he was already. I never made contact with him prior to that day of the 18th, so I'm not sure.
So you don't know how long he was in the custody of the jail at the time that you took out the warrant?
No, ma'am.
Who else is housed in the room with Mr. Carter?
I'm not sure.
Did you personally go to the housing unit to Mr. Carter's room?
No, ma'am.
Do you know how many beds are in his room?
No, ma'am.
Did you speak to Mr. Carter with regards to the marijuana?
I spoke with him. I asked him, did he want to talk to me? He declined.
Okay. Did you speak to any other inmates with regards to the marijuana?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Are you aware of any of the other cellmates having access to Mr. Carter's bag?
I have no knowledge of that.
Okay. Is this the only incident of involving marijuana that you've investigated in the Clayton County Jail?
In the Clayton County Jail, yes, that's the only one.
Were you providing any information as to how Mr. Carter obtained the marijuana?
No, ma'am.
And who was the officer that is alleging they located the marijuana?
It was a Officer Mccarty.
And specifically, what did Officer Mccarty say to you?
I guess during the search of the cell, he located in Mr. Carter's personal bag with his belongings in it. I want to say it was also wrapped in a personal note. Wrapped in a personal note also.
When you say personal note, what does that mean?
Okay, I'm sorry. I have the it said Officer Mccarty was helping with the shakedown, housing unit 8, section 1 of room 8106.
Are you reading from your report?
No, ma'am. It's just notes.
Okay. You're reviewing the notes to refresh your recollection?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if you could do that and then let me know when you're ready to answer my question.
Okay. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So my question was, what did Officer Mccarty tell you with regard to locating the alleged marijuana?
During the shakedown, he said when he was searching Mr. Carter's room, 8109, at which time he came across a green leafy substance folded in paper in his county issue bag.
Okay, so what was the reference to a personal note that you testified to earlier?
I was just notating that it was a personal note that was in Mr. Carter's bag. It was wrapped in paper.
Okay, so do you know what kind of paper it was located in?
Like notebook paper, white paper, notebook paper.
And who is the officer that is alleging they gave Mr. Carter a warning about crossing the guard line with any contraband?
I want to say it was Lieutenant Claiborne.
And specifically, what did Lieutenant Claiborne say with regards to the warning that he gave to Mr. Carter?
I can't remember verbatim. I just know when he spoke with him, he told me the charges.
Okay.
He advised the crossing the guard line and also charged with the less than an ounce.
But did Lieutenant Claiborne give any information with regards to giving a warning to Mr. Carter about bringing any contraband into the jail?
Your Honor, I would object that that's speculative at this point. I think what she's asking is, are you aware of anything that he did, not specifically that he gave one or what was said, unless he overheard it?
Well, I believe Ms. Brooks that the testimony was that he was told by this other officer that he had given a warning. And I believe the question that is being asked is, what was the warning? So I'm going to overrule your objection. I'm going to allow the question. Go ahead, Officer Williams.
So when I came into, I spoke with Officer Lieutenant Claiborne. I wasn't with Lieutenant Claiborne and Mr. Carter at the same time. Because prior to, I didn't know what was going on till Lieutenant Claiborne pulled me aside, advised me what was going on, showed me the marijuana, and advised me that the crossing the guard line.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Pleasant.
Okay. I believe that is all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Brooks, do you have any follow-up redirect?
Yes. Investigator, were you provided the defendant, Mr. Porter's entire personal bag that the marijuana was located in?
No, ma'am.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect, Ms. Pleasant?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, may Officer Williams be excused?
Yes, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Okay, Officer Williams, you can be excused, which means you're no longer compelled to be here. You can stay and watch the rest of this if you want, or you can get off if you want. Ms. Pleasant, Ms. Brooks, do you have any other questions? Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, and the state will reserve argument.
Okay, Ms. Pleasant, do you have any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Pleasant, do you have argument?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay.
Your Honor, there is absolutely no testimony, evidence whatsoever that my client crossed the guard line with any drugs or any substance whatsoever. This investigator couldn't even testify as to how long my client has been in custody. He couldn't testify as to how many people are housed in that cell who had the opportunity to possess the marijuana besides allegedly my client. He said that this was a shakedown that was conducted But when someone crosses the guard line, they are required to give a warning with regards to the fact that the individual is about to cross the guard line, and that they are to advise whether or not they have anything on them that could incur another offense. There's no indication that that occurred in this case. There's no indication as to, again, when Mr. Carter was taken into custody. So we do not know if he was ever given a warning whatsoever in regards to this case. The investigator was not able to get information from Lieutenant Claiborne as regards to any alleged warning that was or was not given. And there's no testimony whatsoever, again, that there other individuals had as much access to Mr. Carter's bag as Mr. Carter. And so there's no indication of whether or not he is housed in that cell with other individuals. So based upon that, Judge, I would ask that this charge be dismissed.
Ms. Brooks?
Thank you, Your Honor. Based on the testimony of this officer, and it's my understanding that crossing the guard lines is in fact bringing intoxicating substances into the Clayton County Jail. There are many ways to notify a defendant of that. An officer can do so. It was the testimony of the officer that Lieutenant Claiborne gave an instruction to the defendant. Also that there is signage that when you are brought into the Clayton County Jail, it is very clearly denoted what the statute section that you're not to bring in any substances. Anyone who's booked into the county jail, especially Mr. Carter, certainly that is posted and they are put on notice of that fact. Furthermore, that the testimony is that this officer certainly has over a decade of experience in narcotics, that the substance, he believes in his training and experience, which is sufficient at this juncture of a probable cause standard, that in fact, the defendant was in possession of marijuana, that it was in his personal bag, and all of the foundations that were laid by this officer, that he smelled it, that he used to be an examiner of it, that the substance was in fact marijuana. I appreciate the arguments of the defense in this case, Your Honor, but this is not a beyond a reasonable doubt standard. Certainly, if in the future, Mr. Carter's attorney would like to put forth that there was equal access, that someone else put the item in his bag, or that in fact, he was not put on notice of the fact that he cannot be in possession of an illegal drug, which is committing a crime on his way into the Clayton County Jail. Again, those are all arguments for a jury trial. At this point, Your Honor, based on the testimony, state's asking the court to bind over both of these warrants and find that the substance at this time, enough probable cause was laid that it was in fact marijuana. And two, that at one point, Mr. Carter went from not being in the custody of the Clayton County Jail to inside of the Clayton County Jail, and that he had marijuana on his person when doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. I was looking for the statute for crossing the guard line. I do remember your client, Ms. Pleasant, from first appearance. I believe he asked a question related to what your line of questioning was today, that I think essentially that he had been in custody for a while. And so it wasn't a situation of crossing the guard line. My understanding of the statute, and I could be wrong, is that the crime can be committed if you're found to be in possession of alcohol, drugs, or a gun within the jail. I believe there's actually a probably a better statute that maybe should have been charged under Title 42 or 46 that relates to an inmate being in possession of alcohol, drugs, or gun, which is a felony offense. I think has a 5-year cap on it. While there was a charge, I'm not the person doing the charging, but I find at this stage that the evidence is sufficient to bind this case over. I'm relying upon the testimony as it relates to this marijuana based upon the knowledge, skill, and training of the officer. He believes it to be marijuana, and that it was found in your client's quote unquote bag, which of course doesn't mean that your client put it there. Somebody else could have put it there. But at this stage, it's sufficient to bind this over to the Superior Court of Clayton County on both charges. So Mr. Carter can be returned back. And I saw an iPhone.
Yes, Judge. Well, first we can go off of YouTube for a minute.
Yes.
Okay.